So let's talk emergency funds. Here's how I view the emergency funds that everybody should have. In your emergency fund, you should have cash on hand that is going to meet any immediate needs that you might have. So that might be like $1,000 or $2,000 cash on hand in a safe, right? Next step up, you have funds that are accessible within an hour. Those could be electronically. So those could be funds that are in your bank account that you can access through an ATM. You could go down to the bank and cash out. You could do electronic funds transfers. Okay? So something you can get, something you can get access to in an hour. That's going to be a little bit more. Maybe that's another couple thousand, 2,000 to 5,000, right? Then you have the larger bulk of your emergency fund that you don't need access to. Now, let's say you need access in a day to the next portion of it. Access in a day, that could be met with, or even immediately, right? Credit cards, lines of credit. Now, I say a day because maybe the bank's closed and you can't access the line of credit until the bank opens the next day. But a line of credit, using a line of credit is awesome. Using a credit card is awesome to meet those needs because it doesn't cost you anything until you use it. So it's just sitting there, waiting to be used, meeting your emergency funding needs. Now, by using that debt, it's not debt yet because you haven't used it, but by using the access to that capital as your emergency fund, it allows you to use your actual capital. It allows you to put the actual capital into something that can grow. That's where the whole life insurance comes in handy, or whatever other investment you feel safe enough putting it in, right? But you want to have access to it within a week. That's where the larger bulk of your emergency fund is. There's not going to be very many emergencies that you're going to have to meet that you need $60,000 or $100,000 within a week. Now, preferably your emergency fund is going to meet 6 months of your expenses, right? 6 months to a year maybe. But you don't need to tie up 6 months to a year of expenses in a savings account that earns you nothing. We can put it in areas that we can just get a little bit slower access to it. Now, I don't like it in the stock market. I don't like having the emergency fund in the stock market. It can work in some instances if, let's say, you have something like an M1 finance account where you put money in the stock market and they give you access as a line of credit where you can actually pull the money out. So it's margin. It's margin that you're going to be using, but it's a super low rate if you do use it. And they only allow you to do it on a small portion of your portfolio. So like 30% of your portfolio. So you're not going to get in the risk of a margin call. The problem is when you need to access that as an emergency fund, what my concern is that it could happen when the stock market tanks, in which case it puts people at the mercy of the margin call. That is a bad time to try and be accessing that money because it might not be available. If margin requirements go up, you may not have access to it. Now, if you have a very large account and you just don't use margin in it, you've got a couple $1,000,000 in there and you've got access to $1 million or $700,000 in an emergency, that can meet your emergency needs. Okay, that would be just fine for meeting your emergency needs, as long as you can get access to it. Okay, but it's not going to meet all your emergency needs. You got to start off. You got to have that emergency needs that's in cash. You want to have access to it in an hour. You want to have access to it in a day. Know how quickly it takes you to get to that money. Know what hurdles are. What are the potential hurdles that you have to get over to get access to that money? And in an emergency situation, is it going to delay that? You need to identify all of these things when you figure out what you're going to use for your emergency fund. Hope you found value in today's video. If you'd like to find out more about IUL and whole life, check out these videos right over here, and we'll see you next time. Now go maximize your cash flow.